Are you looking for a healthy way to boost your energy levels, improve your mood, and support your overall health? Spoiler alert. I already know the answer is yes, and that's why I'm telling you about Goli vitamins. Goli is a leading brand of gummy vitamins that are made with all natural ingredients and free of artificial flavors, colors, and sweeteners. Plus, they're vegan and gluten-free. Goli vitamins are perfect for people of all ages and lifestyles. Busy parent, college student, bodybuilder, does not matter. Goli can help you feel your best. With Goli vitamins, you can finally get the energy, focus, and support you need to live your best life. Get 10% off your first order when you visit Goli.com and use the code PODMOM at checkout. Feel your best naturally and reach your goals with Goli. Welcome to the Relationship Review Podcast. Our goal for each episode is to figure out why and how our relationships make us who we are. I'm your host, Edison Westbrook, and I'm excited to be back for Season 4 and these very interesting topics. Most of all, I'm glad you're here, and I hope you find this episode helpful. This is the Relationship Review. Hello and welcome. You're listening to the Relationship Review Podcast. I'm your host, Edison. I am a communications consultant, and I've been observing the role psychology plays in day-to-day communications for the last 2 decades. My intention with each episode of this podcast is to learn more about why and how our relationships make us who we are. Before we get started, I just want to make a very important announcement so that everyone knows. The Wiz is streaming on Netflix right now. Nobody told me. I just had to stumble upon it early on Sunday morning and then proceed to wake my entire house up by singing at the top of my lungs. I'm letting you know so that you can plan and prepare and not be caught off guard like I was and like my family was. And it's these moments right here that let you know I really care. Okay, let's get into it. So in this episode, we are talking about love languages. You probably heard people discuss their love language and maybe taking a quiz to learn what your love language is. Just in case, I'm going to take a minute and start by breaking down exactly what love language even means. Love languages are a way of understanding how people express and receive love. There are 5 love languages. They are words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. These were first introduced by marriage counselor Gary Chapman in his book, The 5 Love Languages, The Secret to Love That Lasts. I'm going to go in depth about each different love language. The definitions are kind of centered on romantic relationships, but you can use these styles with anyone in your life that you care about who cares about you. So, words of affirmation. People who value words of affirmation feel loved when their partner tells them how much they are loved or appreciated or valued. Saying words like, I love you, you're beautiful, you did such an amazing job with this, I appreciate everything you do for me. Those are words of affirmation. Quality time. Those who value quality time will feel most loved when they're spending time with the people they care about, doing activities like going for a walk, watching a movie together, playing games, anything that gives them the opportunity to spend time. Receiving gifts. People who have receiving gifts as a love language feel most loved when their partner or people who love them give them tangible gifts to show them that they are thought about and cared for. This could be literally anything from a bouquet of flowers, a piece of jewelry, their favorite candy from the store. Like, if you're giving them a gift, then you're showing them your love. Acts of service. People who value acts of service feel most loved when their partner does things for them that make their life easier or more enjoyable. So, cooking dinner, running errands, vacuuming the floor, like anything that is an action, an act of service is what is valued. And last but not least, physical touch. People who value physical touch feel most loved when their partner or loved one holds their hand, gives them a hug, rubs them on the back, any type of physical loving touch. Gary Chapman introduced these concepts in the 80s and published a book about it 30 years ago, which really sounds like forever, but look, relax. It was just 1992 or the late 1900s, as my kids like to say. I didn't learn about love languages until the pandemic. We live in the Southeast U.S. and it stays pretty green here all year long. So after being in the house for 7 months in shutdown, I planned a girls' trip for me and Coco, my daughter, to take the place of our annual Girl Scout camping trip. So usually we do a troop trip every fall, but it wasn't safe for everyone to get together. So it was just the two of us. We rented a cabin in the Blue Ridge Mountains in Georgia. And one of my sisters joined us for a long weekend in October. We hiked, cooked just amazing food, and we talked and we laughed, roasted some marshmallows for s'mores in the fireplace. We did facials, and my sister and Coco built a Halloween gingerbread house. So it was just almost like a little retreat. We took long drives to watch the scenery and see the leaves falling. And it was just one of the most perfect vacations I've ever taken, actually. There was no stress, no drama, and it was an amazing time. So on one of our scenic drives, my sister actually brought up love languages. She did the quiz and for each of us so that we could learn our styles. And in that one conversation, I'm telling you, I learned so much about myself and how I relate to the people in my life. And everyone in my life has a love language that is very different from mine. I am acts of service. Coco is quality time, and my sister is words of affirmation. So those are 3 different styles right there. Until that point, I was focused on treating people how I wanted to be treated, or loving them in the way that I want to be loved. Learning about the love languages really gave me a sense of clarity on how I handle relationships with my spouse, my children, my friends, my extended family. It's almost like knowing the love languages gives you a cheat code on how to have a better relationship. So how do you speak another person's love language? Well, if you want to show the people in your life that you love them, it is important to speak their love language. This means expressing your love in a way that they will understand and they will appreciate. For example, my sister's love language is words of affirmation. So now that I know that, I make it a priority to tell her how much I love her and appreciate her and value her, how wonderfully she's doing in her career. Just whatever the moment requires, I make sure that I acknowledge it with my words. My daughter's love language is quality time, which I now know. So I intentionally create experiences for us together. And I think I kind of knew it before, which is why doing Girl Scouts together and taking our girls' trip together was important for me to do so that we just spend time together anyway. But knowing a confirmation that this is her love language helps me to plan experiences for the future. So we'll do simple things like watch movies together or go for a little date to Starbucks. Whatever it is, I intentionally create space that gives us quality time together. Now, my life partner, my husband, his love language is, I would say, giving gifts, because he does really lean into showing affection through gift giving, specifically sneakers. So we all have a very slick, like, athletic shoe collection because that's what he's into. And that is how he shows his affection, is by making sure we got dope kicks. But I think he's one of the people who falls into maybe different categories because he has other love language, like qualifiers, I guess maybe it's not the best word, but other qualities, other like love language qualities that he falls into as well. I am an acts of service, and I'm constantly in go mode, trying to do things for my loved ones to make their lives easier or more enjoyable. I will wake up early in the morning, clean the kitchen, make coffee, cook breakfast, like on a regular Monday to Friday. This is just what I want to do. Like, oh, when they wake up, I want them to have some food. I'm extremely house proud. So my version of caring for them is to clean the house and, reset spaces after, maybe they've laid all over the couch watching movies or spent a long weekend just being all over the house. Then my sign of love and affection is to take time to go back through and clean everything. So then when you come back into this space, it's nice again. Actually, before I knew anything about love languages, my love language got me in some trouble. So let me explain this. When I would go visit family, like we would go stay with family at their houses, I would just decide. I would just walk in the house, look in the fridge, look in the pantry, just take a look around. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, I see what I can do for you. I'm going to clean your refrigerator. I'm going to organize your pantry. And I realize that as I'm saying it out loud, it can sound pushy, but that's if you don't understand that acts of service is my love language. So actually, my same sister who schooled me or introduced me to the love languages in the first place had told me years earlier that I had upset her because we came to visit from out of town and we stayed with her in like her first real apartment. And when I walked in, I did the same thing. I was like, oh, we're going to be all over your house. Let me look around. You've got me in here, my kids in here. It's going to be crazy. So let me look around and see ways that I can help you. And I went on a cleaning spree in her house. So what I didn't realize was that I made her feel like I had an opinion about her level of cleaning up or cleanliness, or that I thought she didn't know how to clean. So meanwhile, I'm sitting here thinking, oh, her house is so cute. She's made space for us. This was so kind. And we just came up in here dirtying the dishes and dropping crumbs all over the place. I'm going to clean the heck out of it in here and show her my appreciation for her hospitality. And this is the way that I'm saying, girl, I'm proud of you. Look at your space. So another example is that a few years ago, we were in Hurricane Florence. Hurricane Florence was coming, and we evacuated and went to spend the weekend with some relatives to wait out the storm because we're like, well, it's going to be a crazy few days anyway while the storm is bearing down. So let's just get out of town and have a little evacuation. Y'all, a huge tree fell through the roof of our house, let in all the water from the storm, and completely destroyed our house. So that what was supposed to be like a long weekend, maybe a 3 or 4 day weekend, turned into a month of us living with our family. And it was completely unexpected. We only packed enough clothes for a weekend in early September. By the time we left their house, the season had changed. Like, it's time to start pulling out sweaters and boots, and we're still up there in sandals and t-shirts and shorts. Like, it was wild. My family was so gracious and welcoming, and their attitude was just, whatever you need, you all are fine here. We're all comfortable. You stay as long as you need to. And so I kind of fell into a routine of homeschooling the kids and trying to make sure that things were taken care of for us, as we're staying there during the day while everyone else is going to work. I don't know if I felt guilty or what happened, or if it was simply my love language, like screaming out loud, but I kicked into super drive. I was cooking like several meals a day. I cleaned a lot. I organized their pantry and their Lazy Susan. I cleaned the refrigerator, the freezer. Child, I pulled out the carpet shampooer and deep cleaned the carpets. Okay. So what that ended up doing was leaving the carpet wet for like 24, 36 hours. But I didn't think about that ahead of time. I was just like, oh, what else can I do to like show that I'm not a burden and I'm happy to be here and I really am showing appreciation for your hospitality. Well, in the moment, they were extremely gracious and grateful to come home to like a cooked meal and stuff. Like that was great. But later, my uncle revealed to me that they were annoyed that they couldn't find anything in their newly arranged like fridge and pantry. I had moved everything around and they didn't know where anything was because their system worked for them. So when they look in that pantry and see like, dang it, she's moved everything. They don't feel appreciated. They feel like, why don't you go sit down somewhere, you busybody, and stop coming to my house touching stuff? And I completely understand that. So reflecting on these moments and the knowledge of each person having a unique love language really forced me to challenge my own thinking about how I show love. I was so focused on the old, treat others how you want to be treated, which I think is sound advice, but I was never focused on the way other people want to be treated. And this is one of the most important things to remember about love languages. Once my sister and I had the love language conversation, I understood how she could receive me cleaning her house very differently than I intended it. But she also came to understand that me doing acts of service is a very high expression of my love and appreciation. So a couple weeks ago, when I was visiting her again in her new house, new city, I found myself standing at the sink, loading the dishwasher, like pulling out oil and seasoning her cast iron skillet. And she walked in the room and she just looked at me and I was like, girl, don't just look, I'm just doing these few little things. And she was like, look, I already know. Don't even go there. I already know what this is. But because we know each other's love languages now, it made it a very different situation than it had been like a few years prior. So if you don't already know your love language, how do you figure it out? Well, you can start by taking a quiz, a love language quiz. And I really think you can find these anywhere. They're all over the internet. There's probably an app, but you can go to the 5 Love Languages website. And then if you want it to help you as a communication tool, you can share it with the people in your life so that you all know each other's love languages. And once you know your love language and the love language of the people that you care about, you can start demonstrating your love to them in their specific style. So that website, again, for the official quiz is 5, and it's the number 5, 5lovelanguages.com. There are videos there that explain the concept of love language, and then videos to explain each type of love language and lots of other resources. Let me stop right here and say, this is not an endorsement. I'm not being paid to say anything about love languages. Gary Chapman, I've never talked to him, never met him, but I'm open to discussing, being compensated for this glowing review of love languages. Although there is one person that I am not sure love languages have helped me with, and that is my son. Okay. This man's love language is and always has been food, and not just like, snacks or whatever. Like when he was a little baby, I needed to feed him like soul food and like big hearty meals of food. Okay. So one time this was several years ago. So he was maybe in the 8th or 9th grade. I was in the middle of cooking something that was taking a lot of my energy, like, over pots and pans, spending a long time in the kitchen like a roast. And I remember it's like the fall, so I'm always thinking after a long day being out of the house, like these kids, my family, they need something to really, stick to their bones, like meat and potatoes kind of thing. So I'm pretty sure I was making like a roast or roasted chicken or whatever. So I stopped cooking to go pick him up from practice after school. This man got in the car and he sniffed really loudly, like, I just breathed in all the air in the car and was like, Mom, you smell so good. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself like, oh, my little boy, he growing up and giving compliments. And I was just taken aback, And I'm like, oh, thank you so much. I don't even know if I had a chance to put on perfume today. And I'm just like really, all in it. And he was like, what? No, ew, not like that. And I'm like, excuse me, what are you? I'm puzzled. And I'm like, bro, what are you saying? What do I smell like? And this man smiled and showed like all 77 of his teeth. And he was like, dinner. And that, first of all, confirmed a couple things for me, that I hate cooking in my clothes and then having to leave in those clothes because you always smell like what you're cooking. And secondly, that the way to his heart is truly, through a good meal on his plate. So what have we really talked about here today? Love languages. They're a great way to understand how people express and receive love. By speaking in the love language of the people you care about, you really show them on a deeper level that you're committed to making them feel loved. Understanding your love language or a love style is not at all a cure for all relationship issues. You're still going to have stuff. It's still going to, be things to work through and work out. But the 5 love languages do provide a really good framework for understanding your relationship to each other and better ways to express your love and appreciation. But like I said, in the case of my husband, in the case of my son, the love languages don't fully represent or necessarily fully capture how everyone wants to give and show love. A person will probably identify strongly with more than one of the love languages, but you choose, you're encouraged to select your love language as the one you have the most identifying markers in. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you don't appreciate receiving love in any of the other styles. If you're looking for a better understanding and communication and relationship, I would say if you're looking for a starting point, this is a great place to start. But there are, of course, other tools you can use. Since this concept was introduced, 30, almost 40 years ago, there's been a lot of research on people and relationships and how to understand and approach your relationships. So now there's something called the 7 love styles, which is considered kind of an update or a way to refine the original love languages. There's also something called routes of safety. And I have to admit, this is new to me. I hadn't really heard anything about this. So I'm going to look into it a little bit more. But you also can have an apology language, which I think varies very differently from person to person. How do you show accountability or express, I don't know if it's necessarily regret, but express that you are apologizing to another person that you care about? I might revisit some of these topics on the podcast because really they are all very interesting and they correlate so well and they say a lot about who we are in our relationships. The bottom line is that, as with all things, relationships require time and effort if you want them to be rewarding, if you want them to be good, if you want them to last. You got to put the work in. So now I have questions for you. Do you know your love language? And if the answer is yes, do you know the love language of the people in your life? Does speaking to people in their love language help you to understand them better and communicate better? Is there a certain love language that you think you're more compatible with, like zodiac signs? I don't know if I've seen any studies on that, but it would be interesting. I would love to hear from you about your experience with love languages. Send your comments and questions to Instagram. We are definitely on Instagram, and we have a growing Facebook presence. So feel free to also send a comment or a question on Facebook, or you can just email us to relationshipreviewpodcast.com. I will answer you live on the show. So let's keep this conversation going. Y'all, that's it for this episode. If you made it this far, please know and understand how much I appreciate you. Thank you so much for listening. And I need to send a super huge, super mega shout out to everyone who has listened to our season 4 premiere episodes. Thank you so much for rocking with us. I want to thank you for your patience as we continue to figure out our rhythm for this new format. And just to let you know, we're still very excited about what is to come on the Relationship Review. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review and a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or really anywhere, okay? Wherever you leave reviews or ratings, it's going to help people find the show, and it's going to let us know how we are doing. Don't forget to visit our website, relationshipreviewpodcast.com, and subscribe to our emails. You're going to receive a short, very short relationship survey that will help us decide on future topics for the show. This episode is proudly sponsored by Edison Westbrook Consulting. We help nonprofit organizations amplify their impact with the power of communications. Visit edisonwestbrook.net for more information and a free consultation with me. So listen, sweet thing, count your blessings, cut your losses, be kind to others, and be good to yourself. Until next time, this is the Relationship Review. Bye, y'all. The Relationship Review podcast is an independent and original production created by me, Edison Westbrook. Our goal is to unlock more meaningful connections in our relationships by learning more about what makes us who we are. If you enjoyed this episode and love the show, you can help others find it by giving us a review or a rating on Apple Podcasts. If you found the episode helpful, please share it with a friend. This episode was produced by Coca and published on Spotify. We appreciate our sources and contributors to this episode, especially those of you who have written to share stories with us. If you have a comment, a question, or a suggestion, send us an email to relationshipreviewpodcast@gmail.com. As always, we are most grateful for you. If you want to help us grow the show, please consider supporting our work. Go to Relationship Review Podcast and click support for more information.